Hey folks, we're sponsored today by Drag City Records. Hell yeah. Drag City is home to great artists like Ty Segall and Cave. And right now you can get Singer's Grave, A Sea of Tongues, the new 11-song record from Bonnie Prince Billy, the 11th full-length Bonnie Prince Billy release. Damn, that's a lot of records. It also completes a trilogy of albums recorded in Nashville with alt-country king Marc Nevers. If you aren't on board with Bonnie Prince Billy yet, now's your chance, people. He's amazing. Go get Singer's Grave, A Sea of Tongues now, and then dig into that back catalog. And while you're at it, get some Ty Segall stuff too. It's all available at dragcity.com and anywhere you buy music. We're also sponsored by adamandeve.com. They're back, people. They're back. And they want to give you 10 free gifts with your next order. There's a free sexy surprise for her, a specially selected gift for him, and something you'll both enjoy, plus 6 full-length DVDs. Go on, people. Get filthy. You know how it works. It's Adam and Eve, and they're back. And oh, I might mention that the 10th free gift is free shipping on your entire order. Just enter offer code WTF at checkout, and you'll get all 10 free gifts, including free shipping. That's offer code WTF at adamandeve.com. Get filthy and do it in a fun way. How about it? All right, let's do the show.
Lock the gate!
All right, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers, what the fuck buddies, what the fucking ears, what the fucksters, what the fuckabillies, what the fuckadelics, what the fuckminster fullers. All right, man, women. I'm Marc Maron. This is WTF. Larry Wilmore is on the show today from The Daily Show, and also the designated heir to the Colbert Show. A year, well, how long before? How does that feel to get a gig that you got to wait like a year to step into? I mean, the excitement of knowing it's like, all right, you're the guy. All right, the buzz goes down. All right, you just wait it out. I don't know. I think I would go crazy. I don't know if that's the best situation. It seems like the best way to do it is just hold on to the information till a few weeks before or a month before, just to keep the juice going. And I don't know if they can overthink it. Look, he's a great guy. He's a smart guy. He's a funny guy. I was happy to talk to him, but he's a bigger man than me, not shredding himself, knowing that that's going to happen. Conan, you had that Tonight Show gig, 6 years out. That didn't pan out well. Now, I'm not trying to be negative. I just don't know how I would handle that. Hey, we got a gig for you in about 5 years. Holy shit, so much could happen. I could be a rabbi by then. I may be living in the mountains. I may have gnawed my arm off in my bed, just because I had a bad dream. I don't know where that came from, man. I'm operating on full cortisol almost all the time. I did a little, I was researching stress with this video. I'll talk about it another time, about the difference between, stress's effect on the body. Oh my God, sorry. No cough button here. Stress's effect on the body. Most of what we activate all the time was put in place for our survival, to run away from lions and tigers and dinosaurs, depending if you believe that, perhaps people were around with dinosaurs, that there was probably a lot of stress in those times, almost always. And a lot of the sort of stress reaction, amped up, accelerated heart rate, all the stuff that comes with panic and anxiety and getting jacked up, anger, just all that fuel was really designed to get us the hell out of bad situations. And in the world we live in, there's not a lot of those situations necessarily in your day-to-day life, but man, isn't your head full of them? I got a head full of bad situations. I got a head full of panic and worry. Why? Because I can't fucking turn it off. I'm not taking care of myself in the right way. I'm doing the therapy thing. I'm trying to stay like a recovered person. But man, my cat gets sick and I'm beside myself. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do without him if that happens. Look, my heart and my respect goes out to you. Those of you who can handle children. I really think I don't have children because I am not designated to have children. I think I'd be a good father. There's no doubt about that. But I think I'd be a panicky, worried father that would drive everybody, well, my wife and my child, when it became conscious, fucking crazy. I would just be consumed with panic. I believe my parents were. I believe that what they really did, instead of love, was extreme worry, extreme concern. Because I just had this weird realization about this. Not that any of this psychobabble matters to anybody, but maybe it does. You know, because Monkey got sick. I told you about that last week. And then, you know, when I got him back from the vet, I was waiting on the urinalysis results because everybody assumed, well, it's a urinary tract thing. It's those fucking crystals or whatever. So they got to put poor Monkey under to take pee out of him because he's a nutbag and he's full of stress. I don't know if I'm causing that. Maybe I've made my cats not unlike me. Maybe my cats are prone to panic. Maybe maybe I'm sitting around panicking about them and they're sitting around going like, oh God, there he is. Oh, he's going to clank that thing. Not the guitar, oh God, here we go with the guitar. Who's that person in the house? What's happening? Why is there a group of, oh, that's a publicist. Cats no publicists. They come sometimes with the guests, occasionally. I don't let them in the garage, so don't worry. It's still just me, one-on-one in here, man. No publicists allowed in the garage. Occasionally a friend will be in the garage. Occasionally. I interviewed Melissa Etheridge not too long ago, and her wife was in the garage, and that turned out to be very charming. You'll enjoy that when it happens. What was I talking about, though? All right, so we get the urinalysis back, and the doc is like, and this is, they put him on antibiotics again. He'd just been through a 10-day antibiotic, and they make him sick. So I get him back from the vet, and in the day after, you know, he's fucking sick. You know, he's throwing up, he's not eating, he's lethargic. He was just getting his spirit back when I brought him back in because he was licking his dick. He was just getting his moxie back. I think the antibiotics fuck him up. So then, like, you know, now I'm dealing with this sickly cat again. He's not licking his dick. He's not doing nothing. Just sitting on the couch. You know, he's not eating. It makes me scared. He's got undefined inflammation of the bladder. Like, I don't know what, the doc's like, his bladder's really hard and it's inflamed. It's probably a chronic condition. We don't know really what the source of that is. And he's like, bring him back in 2 weeks. We'll take a blood test. Like, do it all now. I'm not one of these people that's sort of like, I don't want to pay for the blood test if we figure, like, just do it all. Now I got to put that poor little fucker back in the cage if he survives 2 weeks. And I had to go out of town. So then I start thinking about it. You know, what is this about? You know, pets die. He's 10 years old. I thought he'd live longer. And I'm not saying he's going to die. I have a tremendous hope in his ability to survive. But, and that, you know, he's not really ill. He was fine before I brought him to the vet, but I'm just mad. I'm mad. And I started thinking about love, and I started thinking about loss. And I started thinking about, you know, why am I such a panicky fuck? You know, like, why is a full day for me? Like, I don't know what I did today. I don't, you know, but I know that I had no time to do anything. I know I did some laundry. I know I categorized some records. I know I prepared some food. I know I did some writing for a couple hours. I know I did an interview. I know that I responded to some emails. I know I swept the kitchen twice. I know I emptied a cat box. I know I fed the cats. I know I washed some dishes and felt bad about washing dishes because there's a water shortage. And then I wondered, can I do a load of laundry? Do I have to put all the load of laundry in now? Should I wash everything at once? Is it on me to save LA from this drought? Kinda is a little bit, but what about the sprinklers? Do I want my grass to die or should it? Look, it was a full day. What I realize about myself is that there's a lot of activities going on in my brain, then there's actual activities going on in real life. Thank God I'm not just sitting on the couch with just, you know, mental activities, because, you know, then I've been that guy before. Then you're sort of like, man, I've been through a lot today, but I watched some television, but it didn't really stop what I was going through in my head, unfortunately. So I got the mental agenda and I got the actual agenda, and that's a lot of work. And in the mental agenda, I think a lot of it is primarily to keep myself from reacting to, you know, what's really going on. You know, what's really going on is I'm got to write another season of my show. We got to break 13 episodes. We got to break 13 stories, figure out what the themes are. We've started to sort of do that. We're really not on the books until the 27th of this month. So I got all this stuff going on, and, you know, my relationships haven't been working out, and, you know, I've become cynical about that. I'm afraid to open my heart. My trust is down. So I got my cats. I know I'm a 51-year-old man with 2 cats, and I know I'm a 51-year-old man that talks about his cats, and I know that in some ways that's very sweet that, he likes his cats, but it's a very, very fine line between sweet and like, oh, that's a little sad already. And I know that. But I love these guys, so I love these cats. And the truth of the matter is, cats don't last forever. People don't last forever. But there's a good chance you're going to outlive your pet unless it's a fucking tortoise or a parrot. Look, I'm not saying monkeys deathly ill. What I'm saying is that I wonder about the idea of loss or change, versus the idea of love. Obviously I love these cats, but you take a lot of things for granted. Like, I don't think I'm that much different than a cat in a lot of ways. Like, pretty much a cat just needs the objects to remain relatively where they remember them being. That, from what I understand, a cat sort of gets to know something by, the compartments of their life. Like, okay, that's always there. That's always there. That smells like that. That smells like that. All right. I know where I am. I'm home. I don't know that I'm not, I don't know that I'm that different. Like, the idea of like, there's part of me that says, look, I can always get another cat. I can always take care of cats. And again, I don't want to hex anything or jinx anything, but I'm just talking about loss, that I think a lot of my panic, like my brain seeking to get worried and overreact about things, is primarily just to avoid this well of sadness and loss that I just don't want to deal with. That's why, that's why I've had, like a string of relationships that don't work out. That's why I'm overly obsessed with my cats. That's why I'm categorizing records. That's why I'm moving shelves out for no reason. I'm building things because I just don't want to sit with myself, but it's not, I don't think it's self-pity to sort of, sit down in your midlife, whatever it is. I think that's being optimistic, but maybe a lot of this stuff is just weighing down on me, and realize what, not even being nostalgic, just sort of like, there's a lot of people in my life that I miss. There's a lot of relationships that didn't go well. And even if I chose to get out of them, that, there's a sadness to it. There's relationships I have now that I wish were better, and I can do all that stuff, and I feel my ability to do it. Like, I know I can show up for my cat. But then I get frustrated with him. Like, he's obviously not feeling well. He's lethargic. He's not eating. And I go over there and I pet him and I rub his stomach. He's receptive. And I'm like, okay. And then I walk back in the house. He's still on the couch. I'm like, come on. What's going on? And I wouldn't do that to a person that didn't feel well. Again, maybe another reason why perhaps children are not the best thing for me. If I got a kid who's in bed with the flu or something, come day 3, I walk in, I'm like, all right, enough already. And oddly, that's what my mother did. So there we go. We're learning things. I guess the message of today's podcast is, I think what I'm going to do, if you don't mind, is try to experience some grief for my losses. Emotionally. It's very specific. Again, I'm not complaining. I'm very grateful to be where I am today, but I have to process some of that stuff. And I think what I'm talking about with the cat is like, I love that cat, but the idea of not having him around is devastating to me. I know that I'll eventually get over it, but like, your heart gets heavy. And I know after, we had, Miss Pat on last week, and all of you were just blown away by that tale of survival and by having a window into a life that many of us don't live. Thank God. But understanding that there's hope and there's humor and there's transcendence, that what I'm talking about is very minimal. I know that. I know that's true. And I know that, like, if I do have gratitude, but I tell you, man, when it comes down to, like, moving a piece of furniture out, I can let that go. Like, maybe that's reminding me of somebody. But the idea of a cat or a person in my life that just goes away or I push away, it's horrible because it just sticks in your heart for a while. Like, I'm still not over Boomer. I still hope that he comes back. And when Monkey's sick, I get very scared that he won't be around and that I'll have a void as opposed to a solid, lovable little guy. And, I haven't dealt with a lot of that in my life. And Whatever. It's not self-pity. It's just a little sadness. It's okay. It's okay. All right? Because he's going to be okay, and I'll be okay, and everything is good. Right? Exactly. You know, I know a lot of you sell stuff online. There are a lot of artists and potters and bakers listening to this show. Getting your orders out the door quickly can be a little tough. That's why I want to tell you about ShipStation.com. It's the fast and easy way to manage and ship your orders all in one place. With ShipStation.com, you'll be shipping out more in less time. Whether you sell on eBay, Amazon, Etsy, or from more than 50 other popular online marketplaces, ShipStation.com brings all your orders into one place to make them easy to manage so you can ship them out fast. With ShipStation.com, easily create shipping labels using all the top carriers like UPS, FedEx, USPS. That stands for United States Post Office. And hey, look, I know what it's like to have a garage full of stuff that needs to be shipped out. It can be overwhelming. ShipStation.com changes all that right away. You can try ShipStation.com free for 30 days. Plus, you can get an additional month free if you use my offer code WTF. 2 months free. That's a great deal. Don't wait. Go to ShipStation.com, and before you do anything else, click on that podcast button at the top of the site and type in WTF. ShipStation.com, type in WTF. And if you're using ShipStation.com, then it only makes sense to use Stamps.com too, especially if you're shipping things out using the U.S. Postal Service. And Stamps.com gives you 24-hour access to the post office right from your computer. No waiting in line, no hassles. Just use the computer and printer you already have to get official U.S. postage for any letter, any package. Print the postage directly onto envelopes, labels, even plain paper, people. Then hand it to your mail guy or your mail gal. Okay? There's no guesswork. Stamps.com will send you a digital scale that automatically calculates the exact postage you need for any class of mail. Read between the lines, people. If you listen to the show and you have a small business, you can basically cover all your mailing and shipping needs by just using our offer code WTF. Go to Stamps.com and use the code WTF to start a no-risk trial with a $110 bonus offer that includes the digital scale and up to $55 of free postage. All right, don't wait. Go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in WTF. Stamps.com. WTF is what you enter. Wow, just doing those ads made me feel a little better. You know I have a propensity to be stuck in it. And I'm not going to do it because there's a lot of great things happening. I know a lot of you like the show. And I'm very excited to be working. It's just my cat's sick. That's all. It's my cat sick. But you'll enjoy Larry WIlmore. Had a good chat with him. Let's do that now. Enough of me talking about my sick cat. Damn it. So I appreciate you have the time.
Is that Jeff Martyr?
That's me, man.
It looks like Martyr, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, Martyr, yeah, it does look like Martyr, actually. Yeah. I had the Martyr hair. And
that look with the glasses.
That is my first headshot.
Wow.
That is my first headshot, and I...
Very Martyr-esque.
Well, yeah, I saw him not too long ago. He's all right.
He's a good dude. I haven't seen him in years, but I remember he was so... God, I thought his stand-up was so funny. He was so funny.
He was a Baltimore guy.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
Right?
I think so.
Yeah.
But I knew him when he was out here.
Well, I didn't even realize that you were actively stand-up for a while.
Long time. That's how I started.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed you. How did I miss you? Why is that? It feels like we were starting...
Well, where did you start? On the East Coast?
Yeah, I basically... I was out here in L.A. in the late 80s. I was a doorman at the Comedy Store. Then I went back east to Boston, and then I ended up in New York probably in the late 80s.
Right. See, I started in stand-up in the early 80s and just dabbled a little bit while I was in college. But by 84, I was doing it full-time pretty much. But I was more of a... I'm from here, so I never wanted to do improv or Comedy Store until I felt like I was ready. You know, so I kind of worked and act out on the road.
Well, I mean, okay, you grew up in Los Angeles?
Yeah, exactly.
Where?
In Pomona.
I don't even know Pomona. Is that a nice place?
Yeah, it's all right. It was like Orange Groves when I grew up.
Oh, so it was,
it's down in the suburbs. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the Midwest, basically. And as soon as you go east of Los Angeles, people are like, what?
Oh, I know.
Where is it near Kansas? No, it's 30 minutes away.
Looks like Kansas.
Yeah.
You know, you go a little ways outside L.A., you're like, where the fuck am I?
Well, my parents are from the Midwest. They're from Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they moved out here right before I was born. Well,
what brought him out here?
My father wanted to live in Los Angeles because his parents were divorced and his father moved to Pasadena. And
So he was here, your grandfather.
He loved Pasadena.
Uh-huh.
And even though he moved to Pomona, but different people have lived in Pasadena at different times. I live in Pasadena now, actually.
You're down the street.
Yeah, I'm not too far. Yeah, just right around the corner.
Yeah, you are actually.
Yeah, I think there's a Tommy's Burgers right in between us.
On Colorado.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all you need to know.
That's how I measure things, by where the Tommy's
Which
Burgers
side
are.
of the Tommy's Burgers or
Right.
the In-N-Out it is.
Yes, I'm on the east side of the Tommy's and the west side of the In-N-Out. Yeah.
So what kind of business was your dad in?
When I was growing up, he was a probation officer. He worked for LA County Sheriffs. And then when I was starting college, he went back to school and became a doctor, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's a big time investment. So he put another 6
huge.
years in?
Yeah, exactly. Got his pre-med stuff. In fact, I went to Mount Sac Junior College. And we have the same name, you know. And I was a theater student, you know, which means exactly. It means everything that laugh entail, right? But my father was serious. You know, he was going back to school. So he was on the dean's list, but you know, we had the same name. So I'm the third actually. So people would be like, "Hey, Larry, man, congrats, you make the dean's list." I'm just like, "Thanks, man."
So you're at the same school?
Exactly, because he got some of his pre-med stuff, some of his undergrad stuff, because he was got a sociology major when he was first in college. So he had to go back and take all this pre-med
for
stuff.
the probation officer stuff. So
Exactly. Exactly.
So he wanted to be in the therapeutic community one way or the other.
Yeah, and he ended up working with the county and ended up getting 2 pensions or something like that, something ridiculous. And he ended up working at LA County Jail when OJ was there. How cool was that?
As a doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
He was
I have to go check up on OJ.
The internist in the in-house intern. Is that what he was, a general practitioner?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So he was doing the prison thing.
Crazy, yeah.
So he had a compulsion to work within, helping prisoners.
I wouldn't use the word helping.
Well, I mean, he cared, but it seems like there's other avenues to go as a doctor.
Yes, but I think it's because he stayed within the LA County system.
Oh, not because he's like, these guys need love too.
No. No. That's
not your dad?
No. He's no bedside manner at all, you know. It's the complete opposite.
You're from a big family?
Pretty much 6 kids, couple of outside kids.
Oh, really?
That kind of situation.
Who had those?
My dad, but it was in the transition period, let's call it.
So it was legit. It was off the board.
Exactly, yeah.
So you're
right. It's one of those, hey, you can't be mad at that. Come on, man.
We weren't together.
Come on, you can't be mad at that.
But does everyone get along? Or?
Oh, yeah, pretty much. I mean, as far as families go.
So wait, so your dad's had 2 wives?
No, he never got remarried.
Oh.
In fact, my parents got divorced early 70s, and they had issues about 4 years before that. They never got divorced. My mom almost kind of, I call it, she fake married a guy. I shouldn't really talk about this,
Yeah.
But it was very bizarre.
Yeah.
But she got close to marrying somebody, but never did. My father never did. And now they spend more time with each other than they ever have.
Really?
Which just freaks all of us out.
Yeah, it's weird how that happens.
It's just not right. Yeah.
But your dad had the other 2 kids after the divorce?
No, he had one. He had one in that transition period. Yeah.
The transition baby.
Yeah, exactly.
So what, are you the only one that ended up in show business?
No, my brother Marc is a writer for The Simpsons.
Right now?
Yeah, and he did stand-up as well, and he wrote for Jay Leno for a long time, wrote on The Tonight Show.
Marc WIlmore?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know him either.
Yeah,
I always think I know all the comics.
We've been hiding in plain sight.
How long has he been writing for The Simpsons?
About 10 years now.
Ooh, so he's doing good.
Yeah, he's
it's a good
doing
racket.
He's a very funny young man.
Yeah, writing's a good racket, man.
It is a good racket.
It's a lot better than stand-up. At some point, you knew that.
I did. I figured that out.
How did you figure that out? So
I'll tell you what it was, Mark. Seriously. I mean, it's funny how, you say we never crossed paths, but what happens is that, you get on the radar screen for different reasons, you know. And I was the type of comic, I did political comedy, I did, offbeat humor, observational stuff, but
I watched your tape.
Yeah, but I wasn't, right.
Yeah, Comic Strip Live.
Really? You saw one of those? But I wasn't your typical urban comic.
No, you were sort of dealing with the sort of highbrow approach to race.
Exactly, you know, that became my name and trade now,
exactly.
you know. But at the time, unless you were the Def Jam type of comic,
you fell through the cracks.
Right, unless you were discussing how brothers are going to gorilla the pussy as opposed to white people just have sex.
Right. But you were more the guy, it's like, let's deconstruct this gorilla the pussy idea.
Why does it have to be gorillas? Why can't it be orangutan?
Right.
If the pussy's going to be primated in some way. Yeah.
Well, why do you think that is? Is that because then, you have an unidentifiable audience? I imagine the struggle at that level of doing highbrow race humor as a black comic, it becomes sort of like, well, who am I performing for?
Well, wasn't that quantified in the beginning? I
Right.
just made people laugh in clubs.
Right.
That's
No,
how
sure.
I viewed it. That was just my sense of humor. But actually, the notion, what it really is Hollywood's notion of what a black comic should be really was what it was about. And Hollywood Shuffle dealt with some of that, too.
Yeah, with that was Townsend's movie. That was the first
Exactly.
one. That was like the first real
commentary on
and
that.
the indie movie though. That this
Right.
big deal was made in the promotion of that movie that he did it by burning through all his credit cards. That
Exactly.
he bankrolled the whole movie.
Exactly.
Dom Irrera was in it. Yeah, it was all about that. There was that big Jerry curl sequence.
Exactly.
Right.
And you have to be Murphy-esque, those types of things. But here's what it was. When I was a kid, I mean, I grew up in the 60s, right? And there wasn't any one notion of a black comic. There were many different types of black comics. You had Dick Gregory, who's a smart political comic.
Still is.
He still is.
A little conspiracy ridden, but
Yeah. Now, once he did that Bohemian Diet and all that crap, right?
Yeah.
But he was a political comic. You know, Bill Cosby was a storyteller.
Right.
Flip Wilson was a vaudevillian type comic. He told jokes, old style jokes. Godfrey Cambridge would have been considered a hipster.
Yeah.
He was on the college circuit, that sort of thing. Red Fox was more of your blue comic. He was a Party Records, they called him.
Yeah, I got him. I got some of them. Yeah.
Right? Those are great.
He's hilarious.
But there was no one
It was
type
Pryor too.
Yeah, Pryor was an extension of both the Cosby form.
You saw him in that form, and then in the. Were you old enough to have seen him?
Absolutely. He started in the Cosby form first, and then he morphed. He
went to
more,
Berkeley.
Exactly.
Started hanging out with the Panthers, and everything changed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He got some awareness.
Yeah, a lot of awareness.
Yeah, I'm black.
Yeah, he brought the awareness to everybody.
Exactly.
So that was those were the.
There was no notion of one type of black comic.
That's right.
You could fit in any type, and then sometime in the 80s, it became one type of thing.
How did that happen? Was that Def Jam? I
think it started with Richard Pryor, to be honest with you. He was so wildly successful, and Hollywood capitalized on that. And Eddie Murphy was kind of the
next in line,
part of that id version of Pryor without all the nasty raunchiness.
Right.
I mean, all the messiness of growing up in a whorehouse and that kind of stuff. Here was a nice, middle-class kid, but had the same type of appeal,
Yeah.
So Murphy was the real glossy Hollywood version of Pryor.
Right. Without the menace. Because
It's true. He was not a threat.
No, but
Murphy
it was
not a threat, but Pryor was.
Right, and he was the first threat in that way.
He was a big threat. Mark, I mean, there are some tapes, I don't know if you've seen these, where Pryor is on the set of a movie, and...
With Gene Wilder? Those tapes?
I think it was
that.
He's
all jacked up?
Exactly. He was on cocaine or something like that. I mean... If you're a movie maker, that's a fucking threat to your ability to finish that film.
Right.
Somebody Pryor who doesn't give a fuck about you.
Yeah.
Does not give a fuck about anybody because he gave that up years ago. He knows he's the number one attraction in the world at that time.
Right.
That is a problem.
That's a threat on an executive level for a film executive. But I think culturally.
And culture, he's like, fuck you, white motherfuckers.
That's right. And that language, but white people were like, oh, yeah, he said fuck us.
Yeah.
That was the difference.
Right.
He just said fuck us and we love him.
Exactly.
And so that became the model. Is that if somehow.
And you had to come from a poor background, from the ghetto, that sort of thing.
But it's
you
weird
had you had to speak in that language.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, even the people that took the Pryor model, which defined what you're saying is the modern black comic, a lot of them don't cross over.
Correct.
And Pryor was the guy that did cross over.
Right.
So how did that set? Well, I mean, all of a sudden I'm going to ask you questions about,
I know, cultural questions. No, I get asked these a lot because
but I understand that model, but it's weird that it became isolated, that it became insulated, that what you're talking about, the type of comedy you didn't do was based on a model that really facilitated the first real crossover act, which was Richard, and then it insulated the rest.
Except for Eddie.
Right. Well, Eddie did a lot
of
things.
Right.
Yeah, a few others.
Right.
But so you did comedy for how long? Stand up.
I did stand up for about 10 years, 10 or 12 years maybe.
And when did you realize that writing was an option?
Well, the reason why I talked about all this was I realized that Hollywood wasn't going to find me. That I had to create my own space. And I realized that if I learned how to write and produce, I could just write something for myself. I mean, I really was inspired by what Townsend and Keenan later did. Mm-hmm. And I just decided, like around 90, 91, that, I mean, it crystallized itself when I couldn't get an audition for In Living Color, But I ended up writing on that show.
You couldn't get an audition?
No, because I wasn't right for it. I wasn't.
You weren't black enough?
whatever you want to call it, you know.
But is that along the lines of like
it's possible. I mean, who knows, you know? But I wasn't the right type. Let's just say, you know.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm not gonna get in people's heads. But for me, I was like, okay, I need to define who I am out there,
right?
Myself. I can't try to fit into somebody else's box. And for good or for bad, whether it works or not, I just got to learn how to do that. So I got into writing and producing really to have to know how to do that.
So how did you get the job with Keenan on In Living Color?
I just interviewed for it.
But did you give him a package? And...
Yeah, just at that time, I had been working on a show called Into the Night with Rick Dees.
So that was
that was my first job.
But were you acting as well?
Yeah. Now, I hadn't quite given up stand-up or performing at that point because I was still making a transition. But once I had decided that I was going to do that, I found out a friend of mine was working on that Rick D show, and I sent in some jokes and stuff, and they happened to be looking for a writer, and I got in. So it happened within a couple of weeks of when I decided to do that.
That was the first writing gig.
That was my first writing gig.
But the acting, is that what you studied in college? You
studied theater in college, yeah.
But did you go for, 4 years and do the whole...
I didn't finish. I was at Cal Poly after I did Mount Sac. And
Cal Poly in St. Louis Obispo?
No, Cal Poly Pomona.
Oh, okay.
Agricultural Engineering School, which is why I was a theater
Hell of a
major.
theater program, I bet.
It actually was pretty good.
Yeah?
Forrest Whitaker went there for a while.
Oh, really?
We were friends back in the day, yeah.
Oh, you guys around the same age?
Oh, we were the exact same age, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we went to the, at the time, we did the summer thing together. It's even hard to explain what it was, and that's how I first met him. And he was at Cal Poly, I was at Mount Sac, and then he transferred to SCU, and I'm to Cal Poly, but we were good friends back then, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, he's an interesting actor.
Yeah.
So you guys you want to be a serious actor?
I did. I studied, I actually was nominated for the Irene Ryan Acting Award when I was in college for doing Oedipus. I mean, so that was the level of seriousness that I had. I studied playwriting, all that kind of stuff. So I was forming that type of background in the beginning. My first professional gig was, I got my equity card. You know, that was like in 82.
On stage?
It was at the Marc Taper Forum.
Doing what?
It was their improvisational theater project, and we wrote a play through improvisation. It wasn't the Groundlings type of improv.
No, like
improvisation
heavy
in order,
stuff.
to write a play. And theater I had a very strong theater background. I worked in high school and college. You know,
but to do,
I thought I would be a serious actor.
Well, right, but the improvisational theater that isn't identified with comedy it can be pretty heavy.
Absolutely, it started with Stanislavski,
yeah,
and, Boleslavsky, and that whole movement, and Adler and Meisner, and that whole.
So you were a highbrow actor. You were going to do.
I wouldn't say I had that talent, but I certainly had that interest.
Right, you were going to do the real shit.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So you come to L.A.
But I was interested in comedy too. I mean, in '79, I did my first audition at the Comedy Store. And I killed.
You were still in college?
I was my first year in college. I just got out of high school. In fact, a couple of years before that, I auditioned for the Gong Show, actually.
Really?
The original Gong Show.
Didn't get on as a comic?
No, didn't get on, yeah.
So you had.
Clearly, I wanted to do that, too.
You had it in you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was it sounds like that was the childhood dream.
Definitely.
Based on, which comics? The guys you mentioned? Which was the first
Flip
comic?
Wilson was the first big one.
Yeah?
He was the first
on the TV show?
He had his own show, Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a brother on TV who was the funniest person in the world as far as I was concerned.
Right.
I couldn't believe how funny Flip Wilson was.
Yeah.
I mean, Geraldine was the funniest character, and he had funny people on, and he was always funny, and I just couldn't believe how funny he was.
Yeah.
That and Get Smart, I remember, were the two funniest things. And it's funny because my sense of humor are both of those things kind of combined.
That's the yin and the yang there.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of smart, satirical take on the world, and then just bold, funny.
Yeah, just over the top burlesque.
It's completely burlesque.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it was.
That's hilarious. So did you think that as you got older, so you tried comedy in high school?
Well, yeah, I mean.
And you nailed it? You did
No, not really. I mean, I was in, let me put it like this. I've always been in many different compartments.
Uh-huh.
And I always didn't know if it was a schizophrenia issue or just not fitting in. Like, I was a smart kid, so I was in the smart group, but I was also kind of a misfit, so I was in the theater group. And I was also I was really good in sports too. So I was a jock. You
Yeah.
know? I mean, I was really good in sports. I was in a sports neighborhood. Like 3 people on our block played pro sports. I mean, that's the level of competition, you know.
must have been the jocks must have not known what to do with you.
It was huge, but here's the other thing. Because you had people of that caliber, you knew very early on whether you had what it took.
Sure, for
like,
sports.
You're like, I'm not 6'6", I'm not that size, I'm not going to play pro basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, there were no false illusions.
Right, right.
So, and that was a good thing, actually. So, like in my first year in college, I had to make a hard decision not hard now, but I mean, I was really good in that time in basketball. I could have played probably at some colleges.
Yeah.
But I had gone to school with Bill Duffy, who played, he was an All-American in the same year as Magic Johnson.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I'm not at that level.
It's hard. My brother was a tennis player. That moment where you realize that I just don't have the genetics or the physicality for it, the gift.
90% genetics.
Right.
90% genetics.
Right. I mean, you could be a good player and just say, like, well, I can enjoy this on my own time.
Exactly.
I don't have to destroy my life chasing this dream.
Mark, biggest lesson of my life, and one that when I talk to kids, I say, you don't have to do for a living what your passion and dream is.
That's right.
You can just have a job and keep that as your hobby and keep enjoying it.
Why ruin it?
Exactly. Because I'm actually a sleight of hand magician.
Oh, that too, huh?
But I do that in my spare time. Never wanted to be, it was my first real love and passion, Never wanted to do it for a living. Always wanted to keep it in a box. And it's still there, I still.
Well, there's a big drop off between pro ball player and sleight of hand.
Exactly. Exactly. That was the old joke. What's the difference between a pizza and a magician? A pizza can feed a family of 5. Right?
But you still enjoy doing both.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
All
right. So you do the acting thing, and you're doing heavy shit. You're doing Oedipus, and you're doing arty
Shakespeare,
theater,
all that stuff, right?
And when did you realize like that ain't going to be the thing?
Well, it was never that so much.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was. I didn't compartmentalize that. It was showbiz was one whole thing. It was showbiz or not showbiz, as opposed to this part of showbiz or this part of showbiz.
Right.
When I made the decision, because I dropped out of school to join the Tapers thing full time and to do stand up, and I thought I'm just going to dedicate myself to it because I had tried it a few years earlier and I got kind of scared, I mean, that was the Comedy Store's heyday when I was going up an open mic night. I mean, people like,
What year?
This was 80, so.
Right, so it was after the original heyday with Richard and everybody, and when the comedy business
this is when
was
people like
up.
Letterman were going up regularly, like emceeing in the main room.
Maybe Jim Carrey was there almost.
Jim Carrey was just about to break
out.
But that was in his early days, and people were like, who is this guy?
Right.
People like Howie Mandel were huge in the Comedy Store at that time. Those are the big people.
Jay was
big time.
Jimmy Walker,
big time. Well, Jimmy not so much because he was already a star. He was gone by that time. But Jim J. Bullock, I remember, was one of the big guys. Alan Stevens was a big Comedy Store guy. You remember Alan?
Yeah, I interviewed him. He's still
Carol Leifer. She was on East Coast, but I remember people like that. Yeah, so it was very intimidating.
And was Richard coming in as well?
Richard would come in and work on stuff.
Yeah.
And so I remember seeing him there in the original room.
It's mind-blowing, right?
Isn't that fucking amazing?
To see him in the original room?
I remember standing in the back. Just
like, what?
And I would sneak in because I was too young to be there,
Right, but you were a comic. You got
exactly.
Right.
I was trying to do it,
So the door guy let you in, and
that kind of thing. You're sneaking through the back. Somebody let you in.
First time I saw him there, I mean, I was there in '87,
yeah,
and he had already been on fire and everything else, and it was a little bit heartbreaking. But to see him around 80 when he was still like,
it was amazing, Mark. And to sit back in the original room, because Paul Mooney would go up and do all the nigga stuff,
Yeah.
And it was funny, but it wasn't Richard. And when Richard would go up, even when and to see him work on stuff that hadn't been, it's not a bit yet.
Laid back.
Exactly. And he's just working
very
on it.
deliberate. Yeah. Well, Mooney was always this, this bombastic thing.
Exactly.
Fuck you. No. Cause a nigga's on stage.
Yeah, every comeback to the
he's already defensive and no one's done anything. Yeah.
Before he even starts his act, he's walking up,
this nigga's not gonna get a laugh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's weird. I middled for him once in Sacramento. And, I used to watch him when I was a doorman at the store for a while, and I never quite got it because it didn't, I never quite understood the point.
Right.
I understood the sentiment and the anger, and that obviously exists, but I never understood what made Mooney so great. So I'm middling for Mooney, and I don't know how he's going to do, and I'm just doing my time, and he wanted me to, you get into that thing with Mooney. He had a guy traveling with him, and he had one of the kids with him, a younger kid, and he's like, "Do you want to take the kid to the mall?" And he's like, "No, I don't." Yeah, but like, here's the weird thing: is that if the thing I found out about Mooney is that if you're a white person and you don't think you're racist, he'll find it in you.
Absolutely.
Is that the approach is, I would sit there and he'd be going on 2 hours.
Right.
That's
hilarious.
And like at some point, some white guy's going to go, when is he going to shut the fuck up? You know what I mean? Like, he's going to test your patience. He's just waiting for it. Right. Test your patience.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of brilliant.
Oh, I think Mooney is brilliant.
No, he's definitely
one
brilliant.
of those geniuses that's why it's hard for people like that to be mainstream. Because part of their appeal is that they are so individual and unique.
But he also set a precedent for a lot of black comics, for a lot of comics in general. That there was a courage there, and a persistence, that is unique and it's a courageous thing.
And a lot of people adopted that, but without the wit.
That's right. And he would always do that late spot.
Always.
Kennison would sit there and watch him. Everybody would sit and watch him.
Always. Yep.
So all right. So now you're going to be a comic. And another question I had though, like because you do put yourself in the position to sort of address race almost constantly.
Right.
What when you were in high school, when you're doing moving through all those different things, being a jock, being a theater guy, being a good student, how did people assess you as a black person?
Well, I went to basically an all-white school.
Right.
Me and my friend were the only blacks in our senior class, I remember.
Really?
It was a Catholic school. And I always felt, part of how I always felt kind of growing up, I felt like I was at a family reunion and I wasn't in the family, right?
Yeah.
So so you always felt like an outsider in a way, and I don't know, at the time I didn't think about that too much. They were just things that I was interested in. But I would do things like, I'd run for student office and I'd always win because I'd have the funniest speech.
Right. Right.
And people always called me WIlmore. No one ever called me Larry. I was always called by my last name. But I never really felt like a part of that group except with my buddy, and we used to make the jokes about all that stuff and everything.
Because, I've talked to black guys who, if they were, there's that idea or probably the reality of being judged by the black community as somebody who is playing the white man's game or
No, it wasn't so much that. I mean, kids would make fun of us because we were in Catholic school. We'd be walking home, oh, you go to that Catholic school.
Yeah.
We have uniforms.
Right.
And that kind of stuff. But I didn't worry about that too much because we were more the representatives at our school. That was our identity more than somebody looking at us as a certain thing.
Yeah.
Like, we were keeping it real.
Right.
That's what we were there to do.
Right. You were representing black people at your school.
Exactly. We were representing black.
Yeah.
It's like, no, motherfuckers, this is us right here. So that was our point of view.
Yeah.
And remember, I grew up in the 60s, black power, black identity, that sort of thing. And I lived through, I don't remember when Malcolm X was killed, but I remember Martin Luther King was killed.
You do? How old are you?
I'm 52. I'll be 53 in October.
I'm 50. Yeah.
I was born in 61, but I remember that. I remember my mother just unconsolable. And so I remember those moments. And so I had a strong identity of what that meant.
Uh-huh.
Like I tell people, I'm not a researcher, I'm a witness. You know?
Yeah. So now you get into comedy and you're going full time. So who are the guys around, that you're running with? In 80, 81, 82?
Well, 81, 82, I was still in school. I didn't start stand-up full-time until about 84.
Yeah.
And so I started out at the Laugh Stop in Newport Beach. Mm-hmm. And so the people that would come through there were kind of like George Lopez was somebody I started with. We used to do the open mic nights all the time. People like, I don't remember Steve Odekirk.
Yeah, sure. He did all those weird noises and the
he
plane,
lived out there. And we used
the
to,
plane thing.
Yeah, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
He was a big Comedy Store guy for a while.
Yeah, I used to see him when I was a doorman.
Howard Trustman, I think, used to book the Laugh Stops, and he gave me some of my first road gigs. But at the same time, I still was acting and that kind of stuff. I had like a small part in the Facts of Life. I got a recurring role, and
that's a big deal.
Yeah, it was huge at the time. But what's hilarious is that as I was starting out in stand-up, that was my credit. You know? that credit would open so many. Exactly. Yeah. You may have seen him on the Facts of Life. Yeah. Oh, the Facts of Life. Because whenever you travel somewhere, the fact that you were from L.A. was a credit in and of itself. Mm-hmm. He's from Los Angeles. You'd be like, oh, from Los Angeles.
Real show business.
Well, yeah.
So you do the 10 years there. Right. Hey, how you grew up Catholic is that's interesting to me.
Unending source of material.
Yeah.
But see, there were a lot of black Catholics, Washington, D.C. area, Chicago area. There's a lot of different areas in the country where black Catholics kind of congregated, and so my family is one of those.
From Chicago.
Yeah.
So it goes back.
On my father's side.
So a few generations
Absolutely.
Of Catholic.
Yeah.
Interesting choice. Someone made the choice at some point.
But it is funny though. But now when I look at it, it's funny. I don't have that Black Baptist Southern church tradition. Mm-hmm. It's not in my comedy. I'm not a preacher in my stand-up and that kind of thing. I've always been more laid back, dry, and that because that's more Catholic.
It's interesting,
yeah.
right?
Exactly.
You were denied the screaming background.
Exactly. For silent suffering.
Right. There's no fainting or witnessing.
Exactly. So I've always had more in common with the Jewish sense of humor brand than with the traditional black preacher comedy brand.
Sure, which was predominant.
Yeah, like my heroes are Groucho, you know.
Right.
That kind of wit, that
it made
snappy
more sense.
wit. Yeah, I mean, that always appealed to me. You know, it still does, that type of thing. You know?
Well, that's interesting because, Pryor was all about, screaming and, and the preacher.
Pryor was hilarious.
But Cosby, not so much. Cosby was almost strictly family. You didn't get any sense of that type of...
You know what's funny? Cosby was not one of my favorites growing up.
Yeah.
And that sounds heretical.
Right.
But my tastes were like, even though Cosby was funny, like what really made me... Like, I was more intrigued by even Bob Newhart.
Sure.
Because there was something clever behind it. There was something more than just funny. He was taking an idea, that Abraham Lincoln idea, and that was a funny, clever take on that of
the Gettysburg Address thing,
where he's coaching him, his press agent or whatever.
Sure, that's almost like a Lenny Bruce riff of the Hitler thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
But
and I loved impressions too. I did impressions.
So you were more
kind of stuff
more like you liked people that had something put together.
Yeah,
like
exactly. So Cosby I thought was funny, but I never sought him out as that's what I like. That's why I like Get Smart. It was satirical. It was making a comment.
And it was about beats. Cosby was about feeling and about movement.
Right.
And obviously he has beats.
Right.
But like stuff like that's written. Mel Brooks with Get Smart.
Right.
That there and Newhart as well. That these were structured jokes.
Exactly. Like Steve Martin. I could not get enough of Steve Martin when he came on the scene because there was thinking behind that persona, and you could see the thinking behind it. It
wasn't just my family.
Exactly. It wasn't. People thought it was an arrow through the head. That was the joke. No. It was the fact that you put the arrow in his head.
Yeah.
And I remember he did something on the Tonight Show where he had like dogs, where he was performing to the dogs. So it's like, who would do something like this? And that kind of outrageousness. Like I love Monty Python.
Yeah, the balls of absurdity.
Yeah, Python were comedy gods to me.
Yeah. Right.
That type of thing more than like straight improv or that sort of thing.
So here you are, you're writing, you've been given entree into the writer's room of what was, a very important thing for television.
Absolutely.
That this was, the first black sketch show.
It's huge.
That it was phenomenal.
Right.
And, what'd you learn there? What was the feeling there?
Well, in Living Color, man, that was a show, to me, it was the show that really introduced hip hop to the television culture.
Uh-huh.
So it was more than a black thing. It introduced the hip-hop culture with the clothing and the music, the language, the style of humor. That and Arsenio did it, in a huge way, which is... And before, no one had really... This culture hadn't really been on television. It had been in videos and that kind of stuff, but not on television,
It was one-dimensional.
Yeah, and...
Previous.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
If anything, or people just didn't really know what it was.
What are they doing?
I know. Right?
You're like, that was a reaction. Like
why don't they pull their pants up? What's going on?
Yeah.
Even so, that was it was the. I always tell people it was the worst of times. It was the worst of times from a writer's point of view, only because it was so difficult. But you learned everything.
In what way?
Well, someone got fired every week on that show.
Uh-huh.
Keenan was very demanding. The writer's room was very challenging, but it was the smartest people I'd ever been around who were funny, too, To see Damon and Jim Carrey at the top of their game.
Damon's amazing.
Damon was fucking amazing.
I used to see him at the comedy stores, like, I used to say, what are you going to do tonight? You going to do your set? You going to do your act? He's like, no, I think we're going to do the jazz set tonight.
That's hilarious. Yeah. But he could do that then, because they loved him so much.
Yeah. Well, he'd go out there, too. I mean, with characters, and he'd just push it, man.
Yeah, he was amazing.
Yep.
To be up close to it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That was.
Was everybody involved in the writing?
A little bit. Jim Carrey used to come to the offices. I used to write with Jamie Foxx sometimes. He would come around. Sometimes David Allen Greer. For the most part, not that much. Of course, Keenan ran the show, so he was involved all the time.
How's he doing, Keenan? You in touch with
Keenan's
him?
always been doing great. I see him now and then, and I mean, Keenan is a mogul. You know?
Yeah, well, I used to get
Keenan figured it out.
Yeah, it was very interesting to me because I saw him because I was at the store in '86, so he'd already done Living Color, but he would still show up and do comedy very rarely, but occasionally. Yeah. And it always sort of fascinated me the different. Because, he's more like you stand up.
Right.
And Damon's this other thing.
Absolutely.
There's like night and day, man.
You're absolutely right. Keenan, my stand up was very close to what Keenan was doing back then, too.
Yeah.
So it's funny. Keenan had to create that show to create a space for himself.
Right.
That space was not there.
And let go of the stand up.
Exactly. He had his role as host, of that show and bringing that was more important than him doing an hour stand up special.
Right.
That was Damon's. Damon couldn't have that space, but not Keenan.
So you were on Living Color for the whole run?
No, I was just there for a couple of years. I came on in the third season and did a couple of seasons, and then I started in sitcoms after that.
Just doing, so you learned the ropes at Living Color.
I learned everything about how to keep a job. I mean, you have to pitch so much. By the time I got to sitcoms, it was easy, because you had to pitch every day at In Living Color,
to bits.
Yeah, and it was like, so you had to come up with unique ideas all the time. And on a sitcom, you have a group of characters and scenarios. You don't have to invent that every week. You're just inventing new scenarios.
Right.
In Living Color, you had to think of new characters all the time, new bits, new ideas, based on pop culture, on the news, on this, on that. So your brain was maxed all the time trying to think of that.
So a sitcom is just refillable. In a way.
Easy.
So what'd you go to from there?
I did a show called Sister Sister was my first show.
Who was in that?
Tia and Tamara Mowry.
Did that last a while?
The twins. It was on for a few years. It was on ABC and then the WB. But they're big reality stars now. They've been around for a while. They have.
And you were just staff writer?
Started as a story editor, moved up the ranks pretty quick on that.
Yeah. And then what happens?
Then I did a few shows. One, I was on Fresh Prince for a while. I did a show called The Show. And then
The Show with Sam Cedar?
Yeah, Sam Cedar. That's right. Yeah. That was before he became a pundit.
Yeah, no, I work with Sam Cedar.
Yeah.
I was we did a streaming video show. He's a friend of mine.
Oh, Sam's awesome. He was great on that. He was very
on Air I thought it was a good idea.
It was a very good idea. And here's a great story about that. So John Bowman, who created it, he worked on Martin and on In Living Color.
Yeah.
So he had this crazy character on the show and he was trying to cast it. And he found this guy who was perfect for it. He was out of New York, and Fox did not like him. But the Fox executive at the time, who I don't even know he's even in the business anymore, thought he was too ugly. He wasn't good looking enough. So so John's so frustrated because he knows this guy is perfect for it. So they made him keep looking for someone, and eventually the holding deal expired for this guy, and he still hadn't found anyone. And so then, in frustration, he said, "Look, I have to, let me just hire this guy, I can't find anybody." They said, "Okay, you can hire him." So he went back to him and asked if he'd do the show. He says, "All right, fine, but I'll only do the pilot now. I won't do the series because I guess his feelings were hurt or whatever,
Yeah.
And he says, "Okay, great." And so he did the pilot and he killed. He was the funniest thing on the show.
Yeah.
Funniest thing on the show.
Yeah.
And then after the pilot, he was like, "Sorry.
About.
Peace." And that guy was Paul Giamatti.
Really?
Paul Giamatti. He was hilarious. And he didn't do the series. He stuck to his word. And Fox could have had him on the series. And the show was never the same without him. Never the same.
He was one of the writers on the show?
Yeah, he played one of the white writers.
Right.
He was hilarious.
Oh,
ask Sam. Ask Sam.
I will ask Sam.
He'll tell you how frustrating that was. We could not replace
Sam's
him.
whole experience with TV was frustrating. The number of opportunities he had, and either blew on purpose or not on purpose, was fascinating.
I thought he was good on that part, though.
No, he's very funny.
He did a good job.
Yeah, it was, and I thought the premise was great.
Yeah, it was. It's just, sometimes it's timing with TV shows.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just comes on at the wrong time, just doesn't quite do it.
So
out of that, I decided I wanted to be a showrunner. I wanted to do my own thing. I had worked on the Jamie Foxx show after that, I think. And I ended up getting a deal with Disney, an overall deal to develop shows. I had done a pilot with a couple of guys from The Simpsons, but it didn't go. And I was contacted by someone at Imagine, about that Eddie Murphy wanted to do an animated show.
Uh-huh.
And so I met with them, and that turned into the PJs. That became, and that was the first show that I was able to
That was
create.
successful.
Yeah, it did pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually, it has like a cult status now, which is kind of cool.
Did you work with Eddie directly?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? So you guys are okay?
Oh, yeah, we just talked a few days ago. He wants to do a movie now. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Eddie was cool during that process, man. He was very cool. And here's the thing, Mark. Until you actually work with Eddie, you don't appreciate how funny he is.
Well, I appreciate how funny he is, but it's like I think
it's because of the movies he's done. It's kind of,
but also just because of like when someone reaches a certain level of celebrity, everyone makes assumptions and it becomes a mysterious character. But people who know him, it's like they just a guy, with a lot of fucking money. Right. You know what I mean? But he's still just a dude.
No, he's hilarious.
Yeah, no, he's always hilarious. So you did that with him, and then what happens?
After that, I created the Bernie Mac show.
Now, Bernie. He was something else, man.
Bernie was a huge talent.
Dude, I tell you, man, it's like back in '95.
Did you ever work with Bernie?
Here's the weird thing. I met him like I was at the Aspen Comedy Festival,
right?
And I don't think the show had been on yet. So they decided they're gonna have a black showcase up there,
right?
So it's Bernie.
Wait, this is '95?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, this is way before I worked with him.
Right. So it was Cedric and Bernie and I can't remember the other guys. Right. And just they're the only 5 black dudes in Aspen ever.
Right, exactly.
They're walking around going like, what the fuck are we doing?
That's
you
hilarious.
Can't breathe up there. But, and Bernie, back then, was bringing a version of the black experience that was so uniquely, like it was so insulated.
I ain't afraid of you, motherfuckers.
Yeah, like it was like this is the real deal. It was almost like you're like we're not even supposed to be seeing this.
No, that's called keeping it 100. That's what that's called, man.
Right. And it was mind blowing to me because like he was so huge, and it always pisses me off that there is this strange detachment between the comedy communities that they're like, I feel like for some reason, and I've been criticized on some level, it's like, cause I'm like, I don't have a lot of black acts on the show cause I don't see them around.
Right.
And they're like, well then
a lot of it is in different worlds.
That's right.
Right.
And it's annoying, but I understand it.
Right.
It's not like imposed. It's a decision. Your market's your market.
Right.
And there's guys who are like, well, I want to do both markets. And then and there are other guys who are like, fuck that.
Right.
I'm okay.
Well, and you go to where your audience is.
That's right.
Right. To me, the whole thing about things being separated, I always had an issue with because, like I said, when I grew up, it wasn't like that. Like, even the way TV kind of segregated itself to having, what I call nig at night, you know, when all the black shows have to be on one night, that kind of thing. I'm like, why is that? I mean, the Jeffersons.
Someone somewhere is saying we know where they all are right now.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all watching tonight.
Yes, it's like the back page of Jet magazine. It would tell you where all the black people were that week. It's like if the police ever needed to know, this is where the black people are in showbiz.
What's all it all becomes, indicating of something dubious,
right?
But not as necessarily as profoundly intentional as some people would suggest, but definitely institutionalized.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. So working with Bernie, though, that must have been mind blowing. You co-created that thing, and that was a big show.
I created it. I didn't co-create it.
You were the guy.
Yeah. So I always have to make that distinction. No, I did create that show. Yeah. In fact, I won an Emmy for the pilot script.
Then that's amazing, and it went the full ride, right?
It went about 5 seasons. Fox fired me after the second season.
Didn't matter. You created it.
Yeah, exactly. We never got along with the head of Fox at the time, who was another guy who's now out of showbiz.
What happened with that? What was the issue?
He was just out of his mind. He was just, he was a real control freak and had a real horrible attitude. But at the time, I had deconstructed the sitcom in order to write Bernie. I mean, remember, I have a theater background. I studied, Ibsen and Shakespeare and all that stuff. So I had a strong writing background and all that stuff. And at the time, every sitcom was kind of the multi-camera.
Right.
Which is really based in farce and kind of based in burlesque almost, and it's a filmed version of almost a burlesque show in some ways,
Vaudeville, anyway.
Yeah, vaudeville, all that kind of stuff, which is great. It's a great form. But it's based on something different. And I was taking a cue from the reality world when I created Bernie. I said, there's something different going on here. The act breaks are different and all that kind of stuff. So I had to construct it in a different way. And it was single camera. You know? The only other single camera in the show was Malcolm in the Middle at the time. And so based on that, they would give me notes on this other thing, and I was trying to write something different. So we always had a conflict.
Right.
And they called me incompetent and thought I didn't know what I was doing. Meanwhile, I kept winning awards. We won a Peabody, Humanitas, Emmy, TV Critics Award. And that made them more angry.
So they were trying to do the old paradigm, which was 3 camera, and give you notes on what they thought it should be?
Well, they were giving me notes based on that.
Yeah.
and acting as if I was the dumb one.
Right,
You know?
right.
Whereas I had deconstructed all that and was doing something different.
Yeah, and
you
it
know?
started with the monologue and the voice.
Talking to the camera
Yeah.
and, you know, and some of that's taken from old cues, even from the old George Burns, Jack Benny, and as recently as Gary Shandling doing that kind of stuff. But in a different way, making a different experience.
And now
of
you're
that.
the guy running it, so you got to hire writers.
Exactly.
And you're running the room.
Right.
What do you look for in a TV writer, man?
What do I look for?
Yeah.
It really depends on the project, to be honest with you. Because I've worked on so many different shows.
Yeah.
Like at the moment, I'm doing a show for ABC,
Yeah.
a sitcom, but then I'm also going to be doing my own late night show. So
Right. You're
I'll
filling
be-
in you're taking over for Colbert's spot.
Right.
What's
so,
that going to be called?
The Minority Report with Larry Wilmore.
You decided that. That's the name.
That is the name.
And
right.
who's producing that? John?
John
Yeah.
and myself,
Uh-huh.
and his Busboy Productions. But hiring writers for that is a complete different experience than hiring writers for a half-hour sitcom.
Right.
So in half hour, you're looking for, depending on what type of show, also makes it more specific.
See what their pedigree is.
Yeah, and their storytelling ability,
Right.
you know, how funny they are on the page, their ability with characters, all kinds of different issues. Whereas late night, it's a little narrower. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just how funny are they, how insightful are they with taking a topic.
Yeah, because it's a different
You know,
context. You're
exactly.
dealing with
They don't
with
have to tell a
news.
story.
Yeah, you're dealing
Right.
with commentary.
Exactly.
And not story.
Exactly.
So-
if it was the Tonight Show, it'd be more monologue based.
Right, right.
You know,
I get it.
Or bit based. So it depends what kind of show you're running or what you look for in a writer.
And you also did The Office. You worked on The Office as well.
Right. I was a producer on the show, a writer, and
Now,
and
The
actor.
Office is notoriously kind of like known for being sort of a, is a repository the right word for Harvard alum?
Right.
But there's this idea,
Right.
and I know you've commented about it publicly. I think a bit.
Yeah,
that-
I think the way that I talked about it it's a little unfair what I was saying in that respect. I was making a different comment and I kind of used the Harvard alums as an unfair punching bag.
It's always a fair punching bag,
right? Exactly. But but go ahead. What was your
Well,
question?
I mean, there is really no easy way. It just seems to me that anybody who thinks that anybody got anything easy in show business, if they can't do the job, they won't have the
Correct.
job.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Like there's this idea. It's like
unfortunately, some glaring exceptions.
Yeah.
Right.
Like.
Some people that are running networks, some people that...
I'm not talking about networks. Let's keep it on the creative.
Some
network
people,
executives are a whole other breed.
Yeah, some people get into, they get to fail for it sometimes, and
right. But
there are some examples of those in the writing world. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. And if I can tell by your face
Yes,
that you know exactly who
yes,
you're
exactly.
talking about.
I know a few people like that. Right.
Are they Harvard people?
No, they are not Harvard people.
Well, you
no.
got to figure the Harvard people know how to work.
Yeah, you know what?
You can't sweep through Harvard, really.
No, and I think a lot of your Harvard people really, I mean, they're smart. That's why they went to Harvard,
Sure.
So, you're starting with that. And
yeah, and it's all, if that's if you know what you want to do and that's how you're going to do it, I mean, that's the way it is. All right, so let's talk about this amazing opportunity. You've obviously done, literally hundreds of panel pieces with John. Mm-hmm. You defined your tone. This is like it seems to be that experience on the Daily Show was a very specific re-entry into performing.
Correct.
That utilizes stand-up chops and commentary chops.
Absolutely right.
So when the gig came, how did it, just for my own knowledge, how did the desk pieces start? How did you get it with John?
Well, you're right. It was my re-entry. I was I had been show running and writing and that kind of stuff, and after getting fired from Fox, I realized now was the time to get back into performing.
Well, you had some passive income as well. I mean, with Bernie running, you're the creator.
Well, sure. I mean, from a comfortable standpoint,
right? Right.
But certainly when you're at a crossroads, that's not the issue.
Yeah,
it's
money's not the issue.
Yeah, it's like, what do you really want to do with your life?
I'm in my 40s. Is it over?
It's never over, but
yeah.
But, I had to say, look, am I going to do this or not? Am I going to, this was the whole reason why I was writing, was so I could do something for myself. Mm-hmm. Now's the time to start doing that. Mm-hmm. So I had to come up with a plan of how I wanted to attack that. One of the plans was to write a show for myself and be in it. The other plan was to get back to my stand-up comedy roots and do like the talk show type of thing. Mm-hmm. But I knew I had been separated from an audience for so long, I had to get back in touch with an audience.
Get your chops.
Exactly. And find out even if I'm even still funny in that way.
Yeah.
Because you never know. Sometimes the audience moves on and you don't line up.
Yeah.
Like I always say, people, it's not that they stop being funny, it's that they line up with what the audience considers to
I
be
know, but
funny.
you're not like the guy who wore the hat.
Right, exactly.
There was no identifying thing like, oh, the guy with the hat's back. I think that hat's out.
Luckily, I never got famous enough to be dismissed by the audience.
That's right.
I was always under the radar, you know. So that turned out to be a good thing for me, actually. So I was able to kind of splash on the scene with all this experience, you know, in front of people, and they didn't even realize I was in front of them the whole time, you know, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
But
the guy behind the scenes.
I know.
The wizard.
I mean, and I had done all these stand-up shows, but nobody remembered that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I won a couple of Star Searches back in the day. Nobody remembered that crap, you know?
You went through the whole Star Search process?
Oh, yeah, and the original one, all that stuff, you know. I lost to Michael Collier. He was like the homeless comic at the time.
I
He was
remember
selling
him.
all that
Sure,
crap.
man.
That was so funny. And I was doing all this, it's just, you know.
The intelligent stuff, and he was doing like, what are you all doing?
Exactly.
Moving around. He was trying to pull a crowd in with a hat when he was doing a theater. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I'm doing jokes like, you know, if I was a beer, you know, a lot of people ask me what I mix with. You know, and I say, look, if I was a beer, I'd be a Negro Light. And I'm a third less angry than the regular Negro. You know? Which is always a good joke, but it's not that joke. It's not the other joke.
Well, you know who else reminded me of you that I thought was a great comic, but in the exact same vein was John Ridley.
Oh, I love Ridley. He's a good friend. Yeah,
he's great. I'd love to talk to him. I tried to get him on here because I remember his jokes.
Yeah,
I remember the joke about.
He doesn't even remember his jokes, by the way.
The Uptown Cigarette joke is like to me one of the perfect jokes about race. Where remember Uptown Cigarette was the cigarette that came out, was manufactured to appeal to black people, and his joke was like, I would have liked to have been at that business meeting at the cigarette company. Where he goes, well, Bill, I can't help but notice there's still a lot of black people around.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
Ridley's very smart. He's one of those. He's one of those true intellectuals.
Yep. Well, he does some, great movie writing, and he's
doing American Crime show at ABC right now. That he
I
wrote and directed.
Yeah, I mean, just like, but he was in that area that you're talking about.
Yeah.
The sort of not the common.
Right. Not the typical
act.
What was being sold at the time.
All right, so John, how you pitch John? What happens there?
So I go and interview with The Daily Show. We thought it would be a good thing to do, possibly. And my managers at the time had a client who was a writer on the show, so that's how I got the meeting. And I think we pretty much talked about sports. I don't even remember talking about what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And John said, yeah, it sounds cool. Why don't we try it out? And they were changing over the show at the time. Colbert had left the year before. Cordry was just leaving. They just hired John Oliver, Rob Riggle. I think also Mambi was just starting. So a lot of people were moving out and people were coming in. And John wanted to, open up the show a little bit. And so my first bit on The Daily Show, I remember, when you're first writing it, you have Colbert and Carell in your head, and they did it the best. They're that fake newsman. So you don't know what your voice is yet. And I'm trying to write something and wasn't sure what it was. And DJ Javerbaum and Steve Bodo, two of the writers, came up with the idea of the senior black correspondent, which was a funny joke,
Yeah.
And that's all I really had. And I remember the first bit during the rehearsal, it really didn't go over well because, it's all those problems with voice and everything. Not that the jokes weren't funny, just not comfortable with the voice. And I remember the crew and stuff, they're not wanting to look at you, because they
don't know how you're long going to be around.
Exactly. It's like you don't name your farm animals because you might eat them.
That's right.
Some of the, you don't want to get too close to them, right? It's that kind of thing. Yeah. Exactly. So I remember being very nervous. Fuck, man, this is going to be my first and only shot at this. I'm going to be gone like right after this. And we were going to do two. And after we rehearsed both of them, they both died. They said, somebody came to me and said, Larry, John said we're just going to do one. And he wants to see you in a few minutes. We're just going to go through some rewriting. And I thought he wanted to see me to tell me it's not going to work out. You know? But I went in and John was very nice. And the process is right before air, John goes through it with you line by line.
Right.
And he just had me kind of put it in my own voice and we kind of talked it through so it wasn't so stilty. So stilted,
So he can interact like a natural way.
Yeah, it became more natural.
Right.
The same jokes were there, but it became more of a conversation.
Make it a conversation, yeah.
And that helped me a lot, especially with my acting background, right? Acting and stand-up.
Yeah.
And then right before we went on the air, John did the best thing he could do, especially for a stand-up.
Yeah.
He just looked at me and said, Larry, look, just look in the camera and just fucking give it to America.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And my first joke killed, right?
Yeah.
And so now my stand-up comedy
Yeah.
You
I'm
know,
in.
And I'm like, all right, motherfuckers, you shouldn't have laughed. No. So now I'm reeling them in. And now the crew's like, who's this motherfucker? You know, did they switch guys? You know?
Yeah.
And it was the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
And
that's what started it
just
all
connected on that first one, and we just took off from there.
And yeah, the dynamic is great. And, you know, John's a great straight man.
He really is.
Yeah.
He's underrated as that.
No, yeah. Well, he's very good at it.
He's unbelievable at it. And like Johnny Carson, he lets you be funny.
Yeah.
You know, he just lets that happen.
Yeah.
And he's happy to be, you know, around it.
That's true. John does not get enough credit for that. And
he really doesn't.
And it is a big part of his job.
Because people focus on the other part of it, which is good, the Walter Cronkite part.
Sure, yeah.
He's the Johnny Carson and Walter Cronkite.
That's right. No, it's a very true thing that you're saying. That because so much of that job is him, providing a space for others.
Absolutely. Look at the careers he's launched.
That's right.
Yeah.
So let's just talk quickly about the new show. So it's going to be the Minority Report. Is it going to be somewhat structured like your Showtime special, or how are you going to do it?
Thanks for mentioning that, brother.
Yeah.
Not quite. I think it'll, we haven't worked out the specifics yet.
Uh-huh.
I'll start working on it in October. But the main thing, there'll probably be a beginning where I'm weighing in on some of the issues of the day. Kind of in a Daily Show way, possibly. But I think the main part of the show is going to be a real conversation with funny people, but not a scripted thing.
A panel.
Yeah, and I want to get people who are funny conversationalists more than setting somebody up so they can do their one.
I'm available. I appreciate you.
You never know.
You haven't asked me.
But
okay.
So that's what we want to do and have real conversations about some of these issues in a funny way.
Right. Almost like the old politically incorrect or something like that.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly
now,
right.
Before you run off, what?
Yeah, that's a good example, by the way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in terms of dealing with race, how do you see yourself in differentiating from Chris and finding yourself in the middle of that dialogue between the black community and the white community? What is the sort of the manifesto that you kind of stand by?
Well, my thing is I'm a contrarian, so I like to defy what you think I'm going to do. So I'm not I never want to do the opposite of what you think. I'll always do the contrary.
Right. That's your type.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and like I say, my personal opinion on things, I tell people I'm a passionate centrist, and I say what that really means is half the time I disagree with myself.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That's what it really means.
Sure.
So I'm always on a search for the truth, as opposed to I have an agenda that I'm trying to get across constantly.
Right.
Which is a different standpoint.
Right.
So that's why I may change my point of view on something based on the evidence.
So that's almost like what do you call it? Socratic.
Absolutely. It's very Socratic. And So my black point of view will always be surprising because it's not based on one notion of it all the time.
Right.
So one of the first bits I did on the Daily Show was I was kind of slamming Black History Month.
Right.
But that's the most of the times the joke on Black History Month is why we get February? Why is it the shortest month?
Right.
So it's always defending Black History Month, and I was attacking it.
Right.
Which is a different point of view.
And to make a different point.
Right. But yet I had a good point for why I was doing it. And John's like, well, Larry, what do you have against it? I'm like, John, 28 days of trivia to make up for 400 years of slavery. I'd rather we got casinos, Right. And that's my take on that. Give me something I can really use. You giving me Trivial Pursuit for 28 days? I don't think so.
Right.
Me, how come the Indians got fucking casinos?
Right. Where's our payback?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's my point of view. I'm going to get to another truth in there that is not is not the general truth.
And by being a contrarian, it supplies you with an almost unending capability to sort of turn it.
Exactly.
Right.
And I'm scooping out my truth on it.
Right.
Not what everybody else thinks. So I may defy the position you think I'm going to take, or I may be on the same side.
Right.
I may be on the left, I may be on the right.
But it's still going to be contrarian.
It's still going to be contrarian, exactly.
Well, good luck with the new show.
Oh, I appreciate it, Mark.
And it's great talking to you, man.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, that's it. That's our show. I hope you enjoyed that. He's a good guy. He's a sharp guy. Wish him the best of luck with that new show. Hey, folks, if you're getting fun stuff in the mail, you should try Loot Crate. Every month, Loot Crate sends you a box with a different theme inspired by all the pop culture franchises you love. Previous crates included items from Star Wars, Marvel, and The Walking Dead. Loot Crate guarantees over $40 of value in every crate. Sometimes it's a lot more. It's like a friend who knows what you love and surprises you with awesome stuff every month. Go to lootcrate.com/Mark and enter the code MARC to save 10% on any new subscription. Dig it. Go to WTFpod.com for all your WTF pod needs. Yeah, do that. Get the app. Got a hell of a catalog going. Do what you got to do. Okay? Got an interesting episode on Thursday. Bob Rubin. Do a little research. Bob Rubin. Comedian. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to tune my guitar. For you. It's a little sad for Boomer lives!